All right. What's up, everybody? It's Will with Schedulefly, and I am in Raleigh, North Carolina today. Extremely excited to be sitting across the table from Cheetie Kumar, who is the co-owner of Garland, as well as Kings and Neptunes. I don't even know where to start with introductions for you. You were recently featured in the New York Times. You were listed as a Southern Living Southerner of the Year recently.
One of many.
One of many. One of 25, I think it was. And you're in a group of 5 that was collectively honored for that, and we'll talk about that. You are a 2017 semifinalist for Best Chef in the Southeast.
And 2018.
And 2018. That's right. Yeah, right. So 2 years in a row. The list goes on. Okay, so you've had a tremendous amount of success, Cheetie, and you are a hardworking. I've spoken to you before. You've been on the podcast before. It was 3 years ago this March, actually.
Oh.
Lots happened since then. Very humble, very hardworking, very inspiring lady in the community and across the country with what you've done. So
You're very kind. Thank you.
You are. So I feel very honored to have this time with you today.
Pleasure's all mine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So a lot has happened in the last 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
When we spoke last time, I was listening to the podcast again, actually, and I want to touch on a couple of things that you said at the time. I'm curious what may have changed. One thing that really struck me is you talked about having, and you had a lot of success then, but you talked about self-doubt and self-doubt driving you, and I'm curious. With all the accolades and success and what's happened in the last 3 years, is that still something you wrestle with?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think I'm not original in saying that there's a, what do they call it, imposter syndrome that goes along with, when you're seemingly succeeding at doing something and you're still riddled with self-doubt. It makes you wonder if if it was an accident, if you belong in that community, if you deserve all those accolades. But then I really started thinking about, self-doubt as if it was linked to anything or not, if it just kind of lives on its own and it's its own little demon.
Mm-hmm.
And then just really trying to place it in a way that's not so neurotic.
Yeah.
I think I've always viewed it as something that can be a powerful force for motivating and keeping yourself in check and pushing yourself all the time. But then the negative aspects of self-doubt can be so paralyzing and really harmful to somebody's natural progression and their growth and their confidence.
Yeah.
So the last couple of years especially, I've been really kind of trying to be very mindful of where it's coming from, whether it's connected to something real or if it's just a phantom fear. Oftentimes it is fear-based, and then just really trying to be mindful of what role it's playing in my life and in my psyche and in my actions and my mood and my approach to everything that I do. So it's definitely still very much a big part of my day-to-day, I guess.
Yeah. And you have a background in psychology, right?
I do.
Okay, so
yeah.
I mean, this is probably something you explore pretty deeply, I would imagine.
Yeah, but I think anybody with a psych degree will tell you that it's really hard to apply those things to yourself. So
yeah.
I'm not afraid to admit that I do seek professional help, and I think that's a really important and healthy part of my life, and it's a decision that everybody can make on their own. But I lost my mother in the last 3 years, and a lot of big things happened, and a part of me understanding how to be a better leader was to understand that I can't do everything by myself, and I seek the help of people who are better at some things than I am.
Gotcha. Okay, all right, good deal. So let's actually talk about that, about becoming a better leader and having, that's getting help outside of work and things like that. But what about within Garland? How have you work really hard. I know you're here a lot. We talked about that before, but have you been able to delegate a lot of things? Have you learned to be better at delegating over the last few years to kind of free yourself up to be more creative and grow?
Well, I think that delegation is a skill, and that's something that I really had to learn too. I mean, I think when we first opened, I was so sort of angry about like not having people to delegate to, and then when you actually get to a point where, you know, I've been asked to do a lot of traveling and cook out of town, which takes me away from being physically present in the building, and you know, it's not like we can close when I'm gone, so the need and the necessity of relying on people that I can trust and do things when I'm not here and keep the place running. It made me understand what it really takes to be able to allow people to do that, and it's not just them coming in magically being good at all of the things, because nobody can be like psychic. They can't read your mind, and there's a lot of ways to do all the things that we do. So just knowing how to lead a group of managers and not just be a one-on-one liaison to every single person on your staff, which is sometimes just not possible. Knowing what it takes to really communicate the essence of what you really want out of people, and being flexible enough to understand different points of view, and realize that there might be another perspective that, you know, you haven't even considered, because you're so like you're on this train and you're just like keeping up, you know. So that kind of flexibility gives you a broader perspective, and then also traveling to other kitchens and working with other chefs really opens your eyes to a whole lot of different ways and different systems that are probably better than what you just happen to invent on the fly.
Well, I want to touch on that. I mean, talk about, so how much traveling are you doing, and what is the focus of most of that travel?
Mostly it's fundraisers, and I mean, I think last year I probably ended up having at least one event a month out of town, out of state. Not because I like went after it. It just kind of happened. My schedule filled up in a way that I was like alarming. And most of it is obviously, you know, it's all food driven. So, you know, sometimes they're fundraisers or like something like Atlanta Food and Wine or a food festival. It always involved cooking for the most part. And depending on the circumstance, you know, if it's not a big organized food festival, which usually you have like a kitchen and a hotel, but you're still working alongside dozens of other chefs in that situation, or you're guesting at, you know, we did, there was one event in upstate New York at this beautiful restored compound. I don't even know how to call it. It's a mansion that has this giant like music room that this amazing couple from the 20s lived in, and it was a group of 4 or 5 of us chefs, and the pre-prep was at Chiquito in New York, which is owned by Alex Reich, a very good friend. And, you know, just seeing how a restaurant in Chelsea that's got a tiny basement kitchen and no gas and like no hood, you know, how do they bring some of the best food in the country night after night? You know, it's just like, oh, wow. There's a lot of depth and smarts that go into this thing, and she makes it look easy, just like all great people do.
Yeah, sure.
So, I mean...
So you're learning a lot.
Yeah, I'm learning a lot. I'm really learning a lot. I'm making up for all the years that I didn't have in training. I think just by like absorbing so much from people that are much smarter and better at what they do than I am.
Okay, gotcha. Well, let me ask you this. I thought there's something interesting. I was reading on your site as you described Garland. It's refined and thoughtful, full of imagination and rebellion.
I didn't write that, but I did let it go up there.
Well, I was going to ask you, what does rebellion mean?
Well, I mean, there's a bunch of ways about that. One is that it's not defined by a single culture. Me being an Indian person, an immigrant, there's an expectation that my food will be very, quote, traditional. But that word is loaded, and authentic is loaded, and I don't really, you know, there were times when I struggled with like, can I put stuff that's not Indian on the menu? How am I going to define like what I do? Because I'm not only Indian. That
Right.
was like just the first 8 years of my life. And, I'm much older than 16. So it's much, it's just a small percentage of my life and my food education. So, I think it's, to me, I think when we wrote that, it was a little bit of an act of rebellion to not be an Indian restaurant. It's Indian-ish, it's Indian influence, but it's also influenced by a whole host of other things in my life.
What has influenced your the food that you serve here?
Mostly the seasons, mostly North Carolina, mostly where I live, and the things that we are able to bring through our kitchen door. I really, it's not much of a struggle for me to be seasonal and think about things that way, just because that's just when things are good.
Yeah.
So that that is sort of like the ingredients define what we do with them. Sometimes that can be a whole merry-go-round of thoughts, but really, we're not working outside of what's readily available by our farmers.
We have a lot available here.
So much.
Yeah,
abundance. It would be ridiculous to even think about anything else.
Yeah. So you're kind of taking, what you're taking from India and South Asia,
Mm-hmm.
and then applying that to what's available here and,
Mm-hmm.
and the food culture here. And how is it? And how is Southern food culture changing? How has it changed? And how is it changing? It's certainly evolving. It has a very distinct.
I think. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say. Southern food is kind of you. If you're from the South, you think of certain things, and it has a very, I think, a distinct style, and you can sort of define Southern food maybe more than most other places of the country. But that's changing. A lot of that's through the work that you and a lot of your fellow chefs are doing that.
Yes and no.
Initially from the South?
Yes and no. I think there's a tendency to lump Southern food into this one big category, and that's not exactly true.
Yeah.
And B, it's tempting to also say that Southern food was sort of like stagnant until this modern era, and that's not true either. Yeah. It's just easy to lose sight of some of the history that goes along with the food culture in the South, because so much of it is like really embarrassing and painful and evil and also like full of heart and movement. And if you think about what people in the South were probably eating in the 1700s versus the 1800s and the beginning of that century and then the end of that century, so many things happened that changed what was on the plate, and depending on who you were and what your role was in the society here, what was on your plate night after night. I think the growth of the aristocracy, obviously we all know how that was fueled and propelled and what it was supported by. So the plate in Virginia in the end of the 1800s was probably very different than the plate in Mississippi at the beginning of the 1700s. The economics of all of that just absolutely were an influence. So, you can't really say that everybody in the South ate cornbread and greens and barbecue.
Right,
it just, even today, I can go to a meat and three place in the eastern part of North Carolina. It's going to be so different than what I would get in Alabama.
Yep.
It just, even if it's, like on paper, if the menu was the same, it would taste differently.
Sure.
It would be prepared with a different perspective, and there might be roots in one place and not in the other. It just, so I just want to, as an outsider, I guess somebody who chose to be in the South, like it was always pretty obvious to me when we were touring how different food was in Tennessee than it was in Florida or North Carolina. Now, I think it's just maybe a part of social media and like the internet, knowledge and conversations becoming more ubiquitous and more maybe informed. Regular people having a voice and being able to tell their stories is becoming a little bit more common. So we can talk about immigration and the influence that people from Latin America and India and, there's still people from West Africa and Vietnam and, all over the place coming to different parts of the South and really different parts of the country. When we can have the same conversation about food in Minnesota, there's a huge Vietnamese population there. or Texas. Good God, there's like a whole continent's worth of conversations there. So, I mean, I think that all of us are just like one little story in that very broad, alive. It's like an organism. It's always evolving, and the more of us that are like actively engaging in the conversation and in really using the ingredients and like really learning about the history and where they came from. And I really love history. I'm so excited when I realize that people in Central America use cumin in much of the same way that we do. And where did it go? How did it get here? Peppers and tomatoes and potatoes, like just going back and forth, and those things becoming such an important part of the cuisine in India, which we didn't even have before 1500. It's just, it just excites me as an immigrant to know that this is like a long history of diasporic evolution, I guess, and I think that history being sort of alive and palpable right now is very, it's very inspiring.
It absolutely is. Yeah. It absolutely is. Well, so tell me about the story you're telling here at Garland, and what is a story that you want your guests to have when they come in here and visit?
Well, I want it to be about their experience more than mine. Yeah. But I just want them to feel like, they're getting either, it just depends on their perspective. Either this food is going to seem like an adventure to them, like, oh, I've never had that before.
Right.
But ultimately, I want them to have a meal and feel somewhat connected to not only what's on their plate, but I want them to like feel like they got nourished. And I love when people say, like, I'd never had this before, but it made me feel like a kid again. And I think that's like the ultimate achievement for me, having a personal connection with whatever you're eating, it reminding you of something that you don't know what, but it's a memory. Maybe it's a new memory, but it's, maybe also kind of fun and adventurous, and it's a little bit out of your normal range. I also really like it when people say, I cook a lot, but I don't have time to cook like this. So that was my goal when we opened, was to make food that you wish you had time to make every day.
Make food that you wish you had time to make every day. And so many people today don't have time or don't make time. I mean, it's
complicated. We're all really busy.
Yeah, it's complicated and we're all really busy. Yeah, absolutely. Tell me about, you were a part of a group, Brown in the South, with Mirwan Irani, who we've had on the podcast and I know well and have a lot of respect for too, and then 3 other chefs. Tell me about that group.
So that concept was the brainchild of Mirwan and Vishpat in Oxford, Mississippi. He's the chef at Snack Bar. Both just gems of humans. And they apparently had a conversation at Southern Foodways Alliance Symposium in 2017. And I missed that one. And they were just talking about this conversation about having an Indian perspective in the South. How many of us are from India or Indian descent and cooking here, and how naturally these ingredients and these food cultures apply to the way we grew up eating, and the recipes and the way we shopped for food, the way our mothers cooked. So they just started this. They thought, let's do a dinner to celebrate this. And we had our first one. They asked me by text, and I probably responded within 4 seconds, yes, I have to be involved in this, along with Asha Gomez and Maneet Chauhan, Atlanta and Nashville, respectively. So we did another one in Nashville in August, and the third one is going to be announced today, but it's March 24th.
Wow.
That's going to be here at Garland and King's, and this time we're going to do something a little bit different. The last 2 have been sit-down dinners, and our restaurant, I think, seats a little bit fewer people. It's a fundraiser for the Southern Foodways Alliance, and this springtime, that weekend is the weekend of Holi, which is an Indian holiday which celebrates the arrival of spring, and it's a very boisterous, outdoor-driven holiday where people throw color at each other, and there's water pistols and water balloons. It's just a big old party. Yeah. So we wanted to do it outside, but logistically, it's like hard to have an outdoor festival in a city and still make it a fundraiser,
Yeah.
So we're just going to do it at King's and here, and just have a bunch of food tables, stations, if you will, and just make it a big food party.
So who attends this?
Well, we're going to. The tickets will be
just
up for
open
sale.
to the public.
Absolutely.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
it is not, and we can make the ticket price lower for this one too, because we can have more people, and it won't be again a sit-down meal. So it'll just be kind of like a fair.
So you all five will be
all
here?
5 of us, plus the last dinner we included Sam Four, who is a Sri Lankan chef from Lexington, Kentucky, and Farhan from. Well, he's going to dental school in Chicago, but he's from Atlanta, and he was on the Gordon Ramsay series MasterChef.
Okay.
So he's joining us.
But he's going to dental school in Chicago?
He is. He's got a plan to fall back on, I guess.
Okay.
Very good Indian son. Vimala from Curry Blossom in Chapel Hill will be joining us, and then we're confirming a couple of other local, regional. Yeah, it's going to be about 8 or 10 chefs, so there'll be a lot of food, and we'll have some, good music, and maybe some henna artists and all kinds of stuff.
Talk about the Southern Foodways Alliance.
Southern Foodways Alliance is just a dream. So it is based out of the University of Mississippi in Oxford, and is a very smart multimedia kind of collective that really focuses on the past, the present, and the future of Southern food, and that includes history and culture and actual, cooking. It is not necessarily chef-driven. It includes chefs, of course, but also filmmakers and writers and poets and photographers and all kinds of very talented people that are also really welcoming and very smart and well-spoken. And so they have a podcast called Gravy. They also have I think it's a 4 times a year magazine called Gravy. And John T. Edge is a great leader of that group, but also there's so many other folks that are just doing really great work. I think he has a show on ESPN called True South. I mean, it's just really like a very needed voice in our time to like be talking about all of these very important issues. Otherwise, people will just grow up thinking all we eat is mac and cheese and cornbread.
Right.
So it's
what a cool organization.
It's amazing. I cannot believe it exists.
And so you're raising money for that? It's a not-for-profit?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. That's really awesome.
Yeah, it's great. I will do any fundraiser for Southern Foodways Alliance ever, at like any time.
That's really cool. How long have you been involved with it?
Since 2016. My first, I might have done, I think the first event I did was in Kentucky with Ashley Christensen, and that was the first real, I don't know, I think I might have done something with Neptune's way back before Garland even opened. Ashley has been supporting them and a very active member for a really long time. So she has that series Stir the Pot, which she's been doing for years and years, where a chef will come in, usually from out of town, and do a dinner at Pools, and then the next day they'll have a potluck either at her house or another location. And all the proceeds go to benefit Southern Foodways. So when Neptune's first opened, we did the cocktail at the potluck back in like 2011 or 12 or something. So,
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, but I mean, I didn't really understand it until I went to the symposium in 2016. And even though I cooked there on the last event, and so the whole time I was kind of like prepping and nervous about it, like really nervous, I still realized like what a welcoming group of amazing and smart individuals, very accomplished, and just no snobbery at all, and just really understood what that word community meant when it applied to that culture.
That's I mean, you said you're nervous about it. There's the self-doubt, right? But that's I bet. I mean, that's a big group to cook for, and that's with folks that have a lot of experience in your space, and so that's probably intimidating. But I'm sure you nailed it.
I learned a lot.
How many people are you cooking for in something like that?
That particular event was like 500.
Wow.
So it was a lot.
Yeah, I bet. How long do you go like when you're going to do something like that, how long are you there?
I mean, it just really depends. For that, I wanted to attend the symposium, and that again was like one of the first ones. Well, it was the first time I drove out of state with, all of that food and a plan, which looking back was very flawed. So I should have done something different. But the symposium was from Thursday to Saturday, and my event was Saturday night. So, and that was also a really long drive. So I was gone that was the first time I was gone for like 5 days at an event. But normally it's like a 2 to 3 day commitment.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
So tell me about the New York Times article. How did that come about?
Well, it was actually a guest that comes here. Bridget Washington came here a couple of years ago with Charmin from CAM, and she had just written a book. She's from Trinidad, and she had written a cookbook, and we met briefly, and then she came in and she pitched this idea, and I'm like, yeah, right, you're going to write for the New York Times, sure. And they're going to write a story. They're going to publish a story about me. Okay. Well, that's fine. We'll do the interview, I mean, I just didn't have, there was a lot of disbelief on my part. But she, she worked really hard on it. And I found it interesting that they chose to publish 2 sweet recipes. And I'm not really at all like a pastry or dessert driven person. But I'd submitted others. But I think, they think about their readership and what was going to like really reach and grab people, especially for Diwali. Diwali is a sweet holiday, so it was just. I mean, it wasn't really till the actual Times people called and fact checked like 2 days before the story. I was like, okay, so this is really going to run. They're like, yeah, you idiot! Like, we're not going to be wasting our time with these proofs if we're not going to run the story. So it was really all Bridget.
Well, I mean, you've gotten, you much deserved. You've gotten a lot of press, and you've gotten a lot of accommodations. And I mean, is Garland busy all the time?
I mean, we still have really bad Tuesdays.
You have really bad Tuesdays.
Yeah, if you have a large party, come on Tuesday. Yeah, I mean, we've steadily been growing since we opened. Yeah. So I'm just so grateful for that. I just cannot believe that. People choose to come here and spend their time and money with us, and I'm so grateful for it. But it's hard to know what affects the sales and what affects our growth. I mean, there's so many factors, and we're not about to ask people to take a survey.
No, so, sure. Yeah, you want to provide them a great experience. Absolutely. When they're here and they come back. Talk about growing. Will you just continue to grow within these walls, or do you?
Who knows what the future brings. There are opportunities all the time, but we are really focused on, again, the conversation I had earlier about like just getting our managers in a really good place and making the place operate in a way that feels it's never finished, but it feels like, okay, this is where we want it to be. But there's all kinds of ways to grow, and we're we're busy people, and we're also very, we have a lot of things that we'd like to do. Another business project would be awesome if it's the right concept, the right location, the right time. The timing is the most important part.
Sure.
And we've gotten pretty close to doing a couple of things, but ultimately, we don't want to like let the things that we've worked so hard to build fall apart until we're like ready to be able to like divide our attention a little bit. There's also music and travel. So those are.
Yeah, I want to ask you about that now. Tell me, because you're a what I didn't mention at the beginning is that you have been in a rock band. You are a professional musician, and now Birds of Avalon was your most recent band. Have you all performed recently?
We performed back in July, but our bass player and keyboard player are married, and they just had their first kid in October, so we won't be seeing them for a little while. Which is fine. I mean, Paul and I opened this thing, so I think we're just used to us being the cause of any slowdowns. Our band is 6 grown people with a lot of projects, so we'll definitely perform again. I think we have some shows lined up in the fall, but there's I don't know, a level of creativity that I really miss, not having an active music project. And it doesn't have to be something that takes us on tour forever or anything like that. But I don't know. It's nice to have a focus, an outlet on Monday nights.
On Monday nights.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are some of the bigger challenges that you have right now? I mean, it could be anything from labor shortage to food inflation, or I don't know, just are there things like that are... I
mean, labor shortage is just sort of like a part of this business now. I mean, that's the hardest aspect of this type of self like independent business. Yeah. There's so many restaurants, and there's just not enough people who really understand what it means to want to cook professionally. But you kind of figure it out. You take it day by day. I wash more dishes than I care to talk about.
Yeah.
It's just a part of it, and I don't know how really to like address or solve that problem. I don't think it's a solvable issue. I think that it would be nice if we had the kind of influx that maybe the tech industry has. All those folks have great jobs. They have expendable income. They want to go to more restaurants. Who's going to work?
Right. Yeah. It's an interesting dynamic because more and more people are eating out now. As we talk, and people are just cooking less and they want to eat out. But then there's not as many people working in the business
for sure. And then we can the work culture is a really important thing. So like one of the biggest challenges for me personally and for Paul is like work-life balance and trying to be healthy, mental health, physical health, nutrition, and then taking those principles and applying them to your staff, recognizing when people are not taking care of themselves in whatever iteration that is. Alcohol is a dangerous thing. We have 3 bars in this building. Balancing fun and party and camaraderie with an unhealthy habit is a challenge. It's always something that I'm really aware of. And then, just then cultivating folks who are here and like giving them opportunities and making them understand the ways that their career could grow, that this is a career, that this isn't just necessarily a stepping stone job, although it certainly can be if you're, and it was for me for a long time. And, when I was touring, I was bartending, and, bartending was just a means to an end.
Right.
But lo and behold, here I am.
Here you are, well, you're an inspiration for folks like that, self-taught and in the kitchen. And
well, I don't know what it is.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a great story. You went from bartending and being in a rock band, and now you've got this amazing, successful, wonderful, beautiful place.
Thank you.
You inspire a lot of the people that work for you, that are in your community, that are part of the greater independent restaurant community and the food community. I mean, it's a phenomenal story. And so when you do have those moments, which we all do, but what you've done, Cheetie, is just I'm truly honored to be sitting here speaking to you.
Thank you.
I mean that. You are a very inspiring lady, and you are somebody that many people look up to, many people admire. I'm sure that the people that work for you are thrilled to be a part of your team. I bet your turnover is pretty low.
It's okay. Yeah. I don't like to have these conversations because I believe in the jinx.
Okay.
The gods can hear us, right? Let's not get too comfortable.
No, I hear you. But, well, anything else on your mind?
No, we're about to have a big, deep clean day today. We're going to put together.
Are you closed on Mondays?
We're closed on Mondays,
Okay.
I wish we were open Monday nights, but that's a different story. We're about to put together some Metro shelves and reorganize our storage, so I'm really excited about that.
When's your next trip?
Actually, next week I'm going to Charleston. Food and wine and food.
Gotcha. Yeah. Good deal. You got a lot of friends that are going to be there as well?
Yeah, I'm excited. Yeah, I'm doing 3 big events, but
3 big events.
Yeah.
Are you cooking? Or are you cooking at all 3?
Cooking at all 3.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a lot. Well, all right.
It's going to be a lot.
That's a lot of prep, I bet. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to be smart.
Well, you've learned, as you've said, you've learned.
Yes.
So you're learning how to be more efficient and plan better each time.
Right. You don't have to do everything every time. Just do something small and delicious.
Awesome. Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Good deal. Good deal. We are so thankful for this opportunity and
Thank
so honored
you.
to serve you.
I really appreciate it.
You just been
Thanks
so kind
for-
with your time and
For building such a very useful and reliable platform for us to make our jobs easier.
thank you. That's not
Yeah.
necessary, but yes, thank you for.
No,
thank you.
it's true.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
All right. Good deal. I think we'll call it a wrap.
All right.
Thanks,
Will.
Cheetie.
Bye.
Okay.